You'll notice that the numbers will thin out during Lent because people don't like getting beat up on by the priest during the season of Lent. So they stay home. It's too bad you missed today, because I have absolutely no intention of beating up on a congregation. That's not what Lent is about. Let me tell you what it used to be about. In a famous novel called The Fall, Albert Cummins talks about a man tortured by guilt. It turns out that in his youth, he was in Paris, France, and he was out for a walk one night and walked over a bridge. He happened to notice a woman off to the side of the bridge. He ignored her, really, kept on going. But by the time he got to the other end of the bridge, he heard a splash and then a shout for help. He knew he couldn't swim, and he knew it was really none of his business, and he kept going. And that moment haunted him for 20 years. He moved from country to country, place to place, and finally, 20 years later, he sat down with his priest and he said, "I can't stand the guilt anymore." And he explained the story. And the priest looked at him and said, "You've been beating yourself up about this for 20 years. You've had a successful marriage, you've had a wonderful career, you've got great kids, you have good health, but you've been beating yourself up over this for 20 years? You don't even know what happened to the woman." He said, "If I could only have that moment back and try one more time." There are moments in every one of our lives that we wish we could have back and do it over. That is without exception. It may have been about our marriage, it may have been about how we dealt with our children, it might have been something about our work life, it might have been something about our church life, it might have even been something in our community. For every single one of us, there are moments we wish we could have back to do again. We would most assuredly do it better the second time. But God is not about beating you into submission for mistakes that you've made in your past. That theology is dangerous in the church. When we make a mistake, we apologize, we confess, we move on. That's it. Done. Finished. But we as believers tend to believe that the life, death, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus is that we flog ourselves into submission. That's simply not true. When you mess up, you fess up, you clean it up, and you move it on. That's it. And living with guilt and shame and remorse our whole life for mistakes we made long ago does not fix the issue. But it can destroy you. And that's not God's will for your life. We need to admit the mistake. We are not fully human and fully divine. We are only human. And mistakes get made. For the sake of Jesus Christ, stop beating yourself over something that happened a really long time ago. You can't fix it. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is not yet here. Live for faith in today. When you walk out the door today, I need that incredible weight that may be on some of your shoulders to be lifted. Hand it to God. God can deal with it. You can't. You have limitations. I'm always fascinated by our seminary students' observations. He made a couple before the service that I decided to share with you. One of them was, Stephen, are you going to talk about the gospel? Because if you're going to talk about the gospel, then I'm going to talk about the gospel tonight. We're talking about the gospel for the next 6 months, and we already did it last time. And for a moment, I was irritated by the challenge. But I got to tell you, I remember as a seminary student going to my supervisory priest and saying, my Bible studies on that. Don't talk about it from the pulpit. And this is why I did it. Why I did it. He's got good stuff to share with you tonight. I mean, really good stuff. Don't miss tonight. And I bugged him a little bit on the way in, and I said, yep, that's all I'm going to talk about, the gospel, and I'm going to do it 3 times for half an hour. Okay, I confess, I lied. I'm not going to go anywhere near it. But don't miss tonight. What I want to talk to you in generalities for the next 2 or 3 minutes is about Lent. Lent is about a willingness to humble yourself before the throne of grace and say, I've made mistakes in my life, and I want to take these 4 weeks and I want to do some self-examination. I don't need anybody else to tell me I've messed up. I know I've messed up. But God, can you and I work through how I can change my attitude, change my perspective, change my way about going things? You see, one of the things that we need to know if we're in leadership, either in a workplace or in the church, is if you think you're a leader, but you're out for a walk by yourself, you are not a leader. You're just out for a walk by yourself. Leadership and the mistakes that we make in leadership are about pulling people around us for a common purpose and a common cause and a common vision for the future. The bulletin this morning was no accident. I did it on purpose. Now let's talk about it. Because most of us don't like change. In our home, whenever I move the furniture around, my wife will walk into a room and she'll say, oh, you did it again. I sometimes think that she actually thinks I do it on purpose so that when she gets home in the dark that she'll fall over something. When the truth is, it's proof I clean the room. If I clean the room, I move the furniture around. It's something I've been doing since I was a teenager. I actually think I did it to prove to my parents that I cleaned the room. See, everything's different. But most of us don't like change. The older I get, the less I like change. I want to know exactly where my suit jacket is, where the keys are, where my shoes are, and if somebody moves them, man, am I mad. And I'm really angry if they get moved and nobody's been in the house but me. Who is the idiot that did that? And then I think, I know the idiot. Well, change can actually take us to a headspace that we get very angry. When in reality is, if we changed once, we can change again without any difficulty at all. But there are certain things that we don't like about change. And in Lent, we really need to examine our motives. Why do we make the change? What benefit is there to the change? Who will benefit from the change? And is it better than the way it was? Yes or no? And that's a collective decision, not just an individual decision. Even if you think you live alone, if you have a spouse or children or other people coming and going, there is an accountability. Why is this important? Because in the gospel, Jesus decided to make a change. He felt the call of God in his life. And he went from private places where we have turmoil and chaos and confusion as we make major decisions about our life. And he decided to go public with his change and to not only do it in front of friends but also family. Have you ever noticed that your friends will forget you messed up? The total strangers will forget you messed up, but your family never forgets. It's as if they're an elephant. They hold on to the memory of that mistake and they bring it up again and again and again and again and again and again. And I think it sometimes makes us paranoid. Jesus made a decision. He was going to follow the plan of God. It had never been done this way. It was a brand new concept. But he took a risk. He decided to make a change. And he decided to do it with the collective efforts of 12 people around him. But before he could do that, he had to face the demons that we all face when we're making a major decision in our life. And that's what I'm going to talk about. There are 3 demons that we all face. One is when the powers of darkness come to us in the middle of a decision, the powers of darkness say to us, it's about power. Powers of darkness say, I'll give you power. In the ladies' study group this morning, there was a conversation, and relax, ladies, I'm not going to reveal the conversation. And I said, you know, around here I've got the power to make all kinds of changes. It's just stupid to use the power. Because we're a community, not a dictatorship. We need to make collective decisions together. Our seminary student said, you got no power, you're like the governor general, you just kiss babies. What are they teaching them in the seminary? That much truth is painful. Leadership is not about power. Leadership is about influence. Leadership is about bringing people together to make huge decisions collectively that the vast majority feel so good about that they're prepared to put their time, talent, and energy behind it. Jesus knew that, and that's why he said to the devil, get away from me. Then the devil tried something else. If you don't want to use power to get what you want, how about you use impressiveness? I'll tell you, when you are vertically challenged and horizontally enhanced, it is hugely difficult to be impressive. My nickname for years was Jack Russell. And that particular dog just bounces up and down and makes a lot of noise. And the most painful injury is going to be to your ankle. Leadership is not about power, it's about influence. It's about pulling people together to make a decision. And Jesus knew that, and that's why he rejected it. And to be impressive is temporary. People eventually figure out that the only advantage to being impressive is a short-term splash in a very tiny pond. Authenticity and integrity is what's important. And Jesus knew that, and that's why he rejected being impressive. And so if it wasn't power and it wasn't being impressive, then how about manipulating? So let's go back to this morning's bulletin. I could have told you all kinds of good reasons why the small version is better than the large version. But the problem is, it would have been pure manipulation because I don't care. And that will offend some of you. I don't care. But you do, and it's your bulletin, so we'll make a decision. Why did I do it? Because you and I will make some of the biggest decisions for the future of this church in the next 12 months. And I have 3 rules. No one gets left behind. Rule number 1. Number 2. We make the decisions together, and there's no surprises. And number 3, in the end, we're all still here. And those were the decisions that Jesus Christ made when he was in the wilderness. If you want to hear more, some exciting and powerful stuff about the beginning of Jesus' ministry, don't miss our seminary students' Bible study tonight. It's all about the gospel. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
of